Hello, sir. How's it going?
Howdy. Good. Long time no see.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's good to have you here, man. I think you're going to be my little kind of wingman on this journey here as we try to introduce something cool that I've been working on and thinking about for a long time. And I know that you're a massive kind of on-chain maxi like me. So this is kind of right up your street, and I'm really excited to show people this with you, and just talk and vibe out, and hopefully people like what we're about to kind of a demo. But before we get to that, how's it going, Chip? You're a legend in the ordinal space, dude. What's been happening?
Oh, been heads down. You know how it is when times get quiet, like when the market gets slow, we just put our head down and start building. So we've been busy working in the background, and I know that's what you're here to showcase as well, as you've been working in the background on some pretty cool stuff, and I'm looking forward to seeing that and spending a little bit of time on art, trying to wrap up my collection from last year that I was working on. Just haven't really decided the direction on that. It's become a child. I have lots of children, but this has become an additional child of mine, and I just it needs to be perfect. And I mean, we can probably chat about that a bit later here as we get into
100%.
this. Um, but yeah, no, really, everything's been good over here. It's like it's really great to see that those people that believe in ordinals are still putting it in every day, screaming from the rooftops. I think now more than ever it's important, but I also
Yeah,
think
man.
change is coming. We've seen a lot of changes in the last few weeks with marketplaces and all kinds of stuff, and so I think the greater community coming together is proving that we didn't need a marketplace necessarily to unite us. That wasn't the original thesis behind all of this. The thesis
Exactly.
was putting art and documents and everything on chain and having fun and learning, trying out new things. And how about you?
Yeah, man, couldn't agree more. I think definitely love to touch on the Sheeple collection that you did last year, and we helped out with that in terms of they're all 4 megas, which is pretty cool. So definitely get into that before we start with the demo and stuff. And yeah, I've been really obviously looking into the marketplace scene. We obviously have Trio, which is a marketplace, and it was a tough old slog last year against Magic Eden because they just dominated the space, and then just like pieced out everybody. See you later, we're out, and then it's kind of rallied and reinvigorated the Ordinals builders to just go, yeah, well, we don't really need you. We're going to just continue without you. So the vibes are still here in Ordinals, and the market is still quite rough, but the builders are still here, and the core community is still here, and I'm just really pumped about that fact. And this, what we're going to show today, is not it's not really marketplace related. There's a lot of Trio updates coming soon, by the way, but this is a kind of passion project that I've been, it's an itch that I've wanted to scratch for a long time. And thanks to AI and agents, what we could actually talk about, because we've been vibing quite a lot on the agent side of things. It's so easy now to just like get your head around about a project, get it out of your brain and into actual code. It's phenomenal. And I've been able just to, over the last few weeks, kind of do this thing. And like I say, scratch that itch, right? Like I've been trying to do it for ages. And the demo that I'm going to show you later basically is like, it's essentially a new primitive to ordinals that opens up kind of cool possibilities. And I've got 7 demos actually that I've created that shows you the use cases of what we can do here. But before we get into that, what we can do is maybe walk through kind of your artwork, what you've done with Sheeple, why you chose Parent Child, why we're on-chain maxis, why Bitcoin's the best place for this, and then that'll really tee us up for what Memos, which is the feature, is all about, basically. So I'm going to switch the views to the screen share. Hopefully that works. Yeah, perfect. So you said, yeah, a couple of days ago, I kind of just teased it out. I did a thing Who Wants to See. So this is now me showing this whole thing, which is cool. And I've got a whole series of tabs I'm going to work through for the demo. But
Funny enough,
this,
I saw this post and I was like, what are you up to? And I should have clued in I should have clued in at the time, but I was like, oh, you know, you never know what you're pulling out of the hat. So
Right, exactly. So that is, and it's very much in line with, what I did a few weeks ago, which is our big like ordinals letter to the community in terms of, um, yes, let's do it now. Magic Eden has left, and opened up that big question of, hey, we should have fixed this thing from the start. We should have kept this thing on chain. So this is everyone's moving fully on chain. So parent child is becoming the standard. This was my open letter that I wrote here, and I think it's kind of a summarized really well, where it says here, like, we're provenance and traits, basically was the whole thing. Like, why are we then, when we love putting things on chain, why are we then just handing the keys over to a single entity and all the other stuff is off chain? It just didn't make any sense. So now, I was really inspired, and the fact now that we're all going on chain, that like I wrote this kind of commitment that Trio is moving on chain, and then Life was doing amazing stuff as well. He's really on. Before that, even he's been really pushing for the parent-child thing. So we're in line with that, and I think that the Memos thing that I'm going to showcase later helps with this situation as well. So,
well, I think with parent-child, you know that I'm very in line with the parent-child views that you take as well, because for me, as an artist, the parent-child provenance is more than just putting random inscriptions underneath of inscriptions and linking them all together to say we were here first or whatever. For me, it's always been an accessible way to show the true provenance of where, like for an artist collection, you have your first piece or your digital signature, and then from there you can tie all your future works to it, so that
100%.
any collector or historian can then follow your whole pathway of what you've done on chain and see it. And so for me,
Absolutely.
it's always been very important that that never gets muddied up by being used for the wrong things. Like when I put an inscription as a parent child, I put a lot of thought process into that. And I mean, I've even thought a lot about ways with the current state of ordinals as it is, how can I inscribe things and or burn them if I have to, in order to make it so that my current lineage is protected the way I want it to be.
Yeah,
And
because it's on
so,
chain forever, right? It's immutable. You can't change it. Like, once it's there, it's there. And speaking of your stuff, everyone knows that this is ord.io, right? Brilliant
yes,
Explorer.
great.
And what I've done here is I've actually sorted by largest file. So you go to ord.io, and then you go to trending, and you go to largest file. And what it does is it sorts it by, obviously, largest file, right? The Pizza Ninjas are having a bit of a hard time on ord.io right now. I think that's an encoding issue. But the point is, this is now the largest file ever inscribed. And if you go in the first row here, it starts with a lovely lady sheep. And there's 5 sheeple here that were inscribed by yourself. We helped you with the 4 mega side of things, but the point is, you have 5 of the largest files ever inscribed on Bitcoin, and it takes your artwork that you've drew by hand, no AI, and you put it on chain. And the cool thing is that it uses parent-child on one of your really, really old inscriptions here. So sub 10K inscription you've used as a parent, super cool. Ordinals, thumbs up for that. And then you have inscribed all your 5 artworks essentially underneath it as well. And some of them are also sub 100 mil, which is really cool to see. But maybe just a little touch on this project and why sheep
It's a
food.
very, there's a lot of things. First, I thought it was important for the parent to be the first collection I had on chain there. So I thought that was a good flag to start at, just because everybody knows my PFP before I switched to a picture of myself. And so I figured that it was important to utilize that inscription to do this thought process, which is, this is my digital signature online, and these are my artworks that I've hand done underneath of it, and tying them together. And each one of these has a story. Each one of these pieces has a story embedded in it. Each one of them has a different meaning, their name, and I put all their, actually in the metadata, we put all their actual story and information, so it follows them on chain forever. If you actually click, I was gonna say if you
Yeah,
actually,
the or.io doesn't show metadata, so let me just.
but it's there, and regardless. So if you go to one of the ones that a lot of people, especially Bitcoiners, really enjoy, it's the oh, here you go. Here's the description. So like the Highland born, sovereign by nature, a lord of the hills, wrapped in tartan of his ancestors, Angus stands for everything Scotland has long defended: freedom, bravery, and unyielding pride in one of in, in one's land and self. He's not just part of the flock, he carries its memory, and like Bitcoin, he knows no matter he knows he bows to no master is what it says, and I believe it does say that. It's hard to read, but at ease in stillness and prepared for the storm. And so he's just a representation, just like our Scottish history, that we have a certain way of thinking about sovereignty. He as well is digital sovereign.
I love it.
And
And again, this is on chain forever, this metadata, and it's parent-child hierarchy, and it's beautiful, right? And I think that's the point. And so going back to what I'm trying to demo here today, essentially, is I'm going to show you some use cases that are already there, and what then later we're going to kind of show you how Memos can essentially, make it a little bit better. So
I think they solve a lot of my current worries about carrying on provenance for the long term, if I'm correct in
yeah,
thinking that.
exactly right. So here's Pizza Pets. Took Ordinals by storm last year. Really great game by the Pizza Ninjas crew. And really, really smart. Basically, like behind the scenes here, this is an HTML and JavaScript file, and behind the scenes, they have a game engine that they built basically inside, which reads the children and gives you a current state. So you can feed your pet, you can put your pet to sleep, give it drugs, all that cool stuff. The only downside is, and like it was the only option at the time, is to do this as children, right? Where
Yes.
the inscription itself, you feed your pet and inscribe a new child under it. Uh, Now that the market is now moving towards collections and collectibles being parent-child hierarchy, and that's how you define that. Galleries are another thing, but parent-child specifically, this would kind of pollute the marketplace, right? Because now you've got a collectible, and you look at its children, and now these are all collectibles, or like nobody really owns them. They shouldn't really be owned by anybody. Like
No.
they're in my wallet for a weird reason. Like, so that's the downside of these guys.
This
Then you've got
idea was this idea was great.
oh, it's
Like the
genius,
game,
yeah.
it brought the people together. It was a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
and again, the team that did it like put a lot of thought into how to do it, and the only way they could do it was with children. Like that was the only way at the time. But I think that Memos, and I'll demo it later, show a little bit of a better way of doing it. So the next example is one we did for a good doctor. I actually coded this one for them, and they wanted to have some cool interactiveness to their PFPs, right? So they said, what about a speech bubble? So we had this speech bubble feature where this text is on chain, and you can customize that text for your, good doctor PFP,
So
you
awesome.
know, PFP. And the way I did it again, the only option I had was to use children and then pull in the latest child as the thing. So now you can see already it's polluted this collectible. It's got a great parent, but then it's got these weird JSON kind of children that nobody really owns, and it cost me 546 sats, and it's in my wallet, polluting my wallet. Like, boo, it's horrible, right? Next example is Lunatics. Again, shout out to the artist, and he also was involved with myself when we did Pizza Ninjas, and Pizza Ninjas has the similar kind of app feeling to it. And the reason I'm showing you this is because you'll see here it's got a version, right? And the way that the kind of consensus that most people have been doing these kind of interactive inscriptions is that the JavaScript inside the inscription is inscribed on an external Satoshi, and then to make a new version, you basically reinscribe onto the JavaScript. Now, that's a perfectly viable solution. It works really well. It doesn't pollute the parent-child hierarchy, as you can see. The project can kind of update the JavaScript for the whole collection themselves, and it works great. It's just that as a collector, right, I can't see the JavaScript anywhere here. I can't really like get to it. I don't know where it's kind of there. If I go to the parent, like it's not there either. So again, Memos have a bit of a solution for this as well, which I can demo later as well. Again, same idea here, right? Pizza Ninjas are on version 2. They're using that same reinscription separate setup, and again, let's demo the other version later. And then a similar idea is another one that I made for Octa, which was this George Brack painting. This is an upgradable art piece as well. So there's 3. I'm just showing you these 3 pieces to showcase that there are more than just art on Bitcoin right now. There are more. There's these interactive things, and the coolest, that's the shit that gets me out of bed in the morning, is like, what other cool stuff can we inscribe forever on chain, right? Like, how can we make this interactive? And it's all on chain, all the data is on chain. So that's kind of where I'm getting at. And then I just wanted to showcase LIFO's thing that it released yesterday. It's like as I say, we're all going in this direction. He's already like really powering down on the parent-child only stuff. So this is purely parent-child. So that's why, as I say, it's becoming more and more important that we don't fuck around with that parent-child hierarchy with random JSONs, basically. So that brings me to, I'm going to delete the sheeple, Inscription memos. So memos are essentially this idea that I've got, which is a new primitive, a primitive meaning like parent-child, like, you know, metadata, like it's a primitive that you can use to basically append data to inscriptions. If you are the owner of that inscription, only you can do that.
I like that.
Yeah, so basically the way of doing it, the reason is that you can append data like all the things that I've showed you earlier without creating children that pollutes the wallet, without having to reinscribe on a Satoshi. And then also, like, no one needs to own these things really, because they're just arbitrary data. They're not a collectible. They don't need to be owned. So inscription memos actually get burned straight away to op return, so it doesn't pollute your wallet, and it means we can just actually use one Satoshi as well, so it doesn't really use up any sats. And in that way, you've got this best of both worlds, right? You've not polluted the parent-child hierarchy, and you're not creating random stuff in your wallet, but you have retained data on an inscription that you can append over time. And I'm going to show you the demos that really hit home how that works, basically. But memos aren't collectibles. They have no value, no spendable output. They never enter a wallet. They exist only as permanent readable data on chain. And I think that's the summary of like what it is. And I say, I don't need to read this, but this is saying before, again, you can reinscribe, or you can use child, or you can use memos to like have this better way of doing it. Yeah, you create it, it burns, and then you can just read it forever on chain. Yeah, so again, there's a little comparison table here. We can skip that. I've also designed it with recursive endpoints, because that's the point, right? We want to be able to utilize this data inside the inscription. If anyone doesn't know what a recursive endpoint is, it's basically inscriptions inherently are sandboxed. You can't access any external data outside of it. So inscription very much only knows about itself. And when recursive endpoints get released a few years ago, it really just opened Pandora's box for people to allow crazy shit to happen. Like now inscriptions can talk to other inscriptions, and it was just wild. So memos are also recursive endpoints where you can, inside the inscription itself with JavaScript, you can say, hey, give me all my memos and then let's do something with them. And that's why and I've set them up in a way where it actually uses the same structure as reinscription. So this would be the SAT endpoint. It's the same structure as that, because the SAT endpoint has this really cool way of getting the latest memo, or getting the latest reinscription on the SAT one. But what you can do here is you can call any inscription ID, get me -1, and it'll get you the latest one. So if you've got 3,000 memos on an inscription, basically you don't need to paginate through them inside the inscription. You can just go straight to the last one, and that's where it's perfect for the things like latest settings or latest JavaScript for upgrades and things like that. So that's why it uses this recursive endpoint structure. Any questions, Chip, while we're at it? This is lecture time, you know.
No, I'm just enthralled listening to, and my head obviously is just churning with ideas already on what to do. I think I'll save my question. I want to see the demo, so I think I'll save my questions for the end. Cool,
sounds good, man. So again, I've just like vibe coded and thought about like different use cases. A couple of these use cases, specifically the app provenance and the PFP settings, have came from my real world need for memos. I've got my own PFP collection called Satoshables, and I'm bringing them to ordinals, and I want to have settings and I want to use memos for it. And a couple of clients that are coming into the ordinals bot world now for us with real world assets have a very much a need for appending provenance to the real world assets over time. So that's why
Very cool.
this is the first demo that I want to show, where it's basically an image, right? It's just a simple image inscription, no parent-child. This is just pretend this is a real-world asset and this is some money somewhere, right? And this is the digital twin version of that. Let's just pretend. What I've done is for these demos is I've created the console on the right here. This is all local. There's no actual transactions happening. It's on reg test locally, so the transactions will happen really quickly, but in the real world it's going to take 10 minutes. But what I've done is I've shown the console so you can at least see the ord command that's being sent for this. So right now, this inscription actually has 3 memos on it, and where are they? Well, they don't pollute the parent-child thing. That's great. They're not reinscribed on the SAT. They're in this new memos field here that you can click on, and you can see here the three memos that have been already attached to this. And the cool thing is these memos are inscriptions themselves. They're on chain forever. If I click on one, it's got an inscription number. But importantly, it's burned straight away. It only used one SAT, and it's not owned by anyone. It's just data. No one needs to own this stuff. And because it's an inscription, it can be JSON, it can be an image, it can be anything that an inscription can be put into a memo, actually, including all the options that go with it. So you can add protocols, and you can add metadata and all sorts of stuff that you can do with inscriptions. You can also add to memos, because memos are inscriptions. But you see this one has 3 on it already, and on this little app that I've made, I've been able to pull those 3 out of the on-chain thing and just display them here. So let's make a new one. So let's say this one gets sold, and it was sold to Bruff, and it was sold in Glasgow, whatever. So now I've sent this, and what it's doing is obviously locally, it's calling ord, and it's attaching the memo to this inscription, and it's passing this file as the memo data, basically. And now it's done, and you see the 4th one has been there, and if I refresh here, it's here, and if I go back, there's now 4 memos basically attached to this thing. So that's the very bare bones demo of memos, right? Where you're just literally attaching arbitrary data to an inscription. And again, only the owner can do that. So that's the bare bones one. The next demo we've got is the PFP. So again, I've got a real world use case that I need this for. Satoshables are going to migrate to ordinals, and Satoshables are by default they're Satoshi, so they're like an old Asian gentleman. But I've always had this dream of actually being able to switch it to like a female version as well, because that's just cool when it's more inclusive. So now when I'm bringing Satoshables to ordinals, there will be an option on chain to actually switch your PFP to be a male or a female Satoshable. That aside, this is an example that I've created here of some other random artwork. But imagine this is the PFP collection, and you've built it with these options. So if I look at it in the Explorer, there's no memos. This is just the basic PFP, and it's created in a very simple, similar way to most PFPs on ordinals, which are HTML, layers, very basic. Everyone knows how that works on ordinals. It's just layers. So what I'll do is I'm going to put sunglasses on. I'm going to change the background to orange.
Of course.
And then, and then we're going to send a memo, and what's being sent is essentially just this piece of JavaScript, JSON. So again, the ord memo, and then this file. And now if I refresh the on-chain version, it's updated. Again, no parent-child, no polluting of random settings, no reinscriptions, just an arbitrary bit of data that the inscription itself can read and show on-chain the latest version of it. And if you look at the memo now, you'll see it's just a very simple settings JSON that I have. The code, the description itself has the code inside it to read memos, understands I've put the glasses on, understands to then put that layer on, understands the color of the background of the setting. So basically it's settings for PFPs basically on chain and reflected on chain as well. And then again, you can see like in this app, I've been able to pull out the memo history. I've been able to pull out the current settings. I've been able to display it here. So all on-chain data without affecting the hierarchy. So demo number 2 is just a random one, but like it's an idea. So let's just say, for example, you've got this Inscription app, which is your receipt ledger, and you know, you want to manage your receipts, and you know, you can take photos of the receipt, and then so this app, what this app does here is I can just choose a receipt, for example, this one, and this app will then accept that image. It'll parse the image and pull out some metadata, and then I can send it. So when you send this one, you see a little bit different. Ord is also sending the memo, the ID for where it's being memotized, and then the file, but also can pass along metadata because it's memos are inscriptions. So now, if I look at the on-chain version and refresh quickly, just went from 2 to 3 receipts. I can click on the receipt. I can see that the app has parsed out the 89.95 and added it as a row here, 89.95, and it adds up the content. It's 3 receipts. If I look at the memos, again, they're just image inscriptions. I mean, these are just demos, but that could be a photo of an inscription, for a photo of a receipt, for example, and it's passed along the metadata and it's burned it straight away. So it's just a really good use case of showing you that memos can be anything. Memos can be images, and memos could be other content as well. So that's cool. Then I've got to fire through these because there's a lot of them. The digital pet idea is obviously Pizza Pets inspired, right? But I wanted to show you that right now there's been 3 actions processed on this pet, and there's no children needed, right? There's no reinscription needed. It's all memo driven essentially. So my pet looks pretty low in energy here, right? So let's just put them to sleep for a second. Again, how do you do that? Well, you send a memo, right? So it's we inscribe a memo, which is just this action sleep. So okay, it feels a bit better. So let's continue to sleep for a little while. Again, another memo, action sleep. And bear in mind, on the real world, that's got to take a Bitcoin block, right? This is just local.
Yeah, it's 20 minutes now.
Right, cool. Yeah. So then basically if I look at this in the Explorer, you see that the memos are updating, but there's no children, and the pet state is where it's meant to be. And then let's just give it a treat. Again, it's another memo, action treat. And you know, the pet's happy now, you know, and then if I look at on-chain, he's also happy. So, and you can look at the actions, these are all just memos. So it's a way of doing like what Pizza Pets did, but without children, basically, and polluting the child, right? Because now this collectible has a nice clean hierarchy. It could have a parent, obviously, but it didn't do a parent here, but that's the point.
But it could be the Pizza Ninja main collection, and this could be the pet underneath of it.
Exactly, and then you don't have this pollution of JSONs, JavaScript, JSON files, which are the children. So yeah, Pizza Pets did it a little bit differently, where they used delegates and they showed some like actual visuals on things. But the point is, even those are just, no one needs to have them and own them, right? Like the beauty of this thing is that the memos aren't owned by anybody. They're just burned straight away. They're useless pieces of data that just needs to get read. So yeah. So then carrying on, we've got, which is where it gets a little bit wild, right? So I've got a fully fledged league here of tic-tac-toe, completely powered by memos, right? So if you look at the league, it's the Node Monkey Cup. So this is what it looks like on chain. And as the owner of the league, you can register players to the league, basically. And the player cards look like this. And this is your collectible, and you have one collectible over multiple leagues, and this is your points across all leagues, basically. So it's like, this could be your forever collectible, and you can play as many leagues as you want, and this is your player card, basically. So let's show it.
Have collection versus collection, even, and
yeah, for sure.
Provenance of it. Cool.
So what we'll do is the Wizards League that I've created has nobody in it, right? So as the let me just get this here quickly. Let me get my player card ID, and then as the league owner of the Wizard League, I can register this card, and then again, that's a memo, and this league has like a memo engine in it that can read memos and present them properly. And player 2, again, let's just add him while we're at it, as a league owner. So again, it's just a memo. So now these 2 players have been signed up for the Wizard League. And now I can view it as, I'll just view it as player one, for example. So pretend that I'm now player one and I have my card here and I want to play, I want to basically start a new game in the Wizard League. So I can say start new game with player two. Again, it's a memo, right? And the game engine reads all these memos and reads through them and gets to the current state, which is now, hey, you're now in the Wizard League, you've created a game, it's pending. So if I view it as player two, he'll then see on chain. This is again on chain, right? If I look at his player card, it's all on chain. He can see, oh, hey, player one's invited me to a game. Cool, I'm going to accept that. How do you accept it? Again, it's a memo, right? So everything's memo driven. And now I've accepted this game and it goes back, I'm waiting, and goes back to player one, and it's like, okay, go, your move, make your move. So I'm going to make my move here. I'm going to make a move. What is that again? It's a memo, right? Like everything's memos. And now that's got to be on chain. It's got to make the move. It marks it there. It marks it in player two's card, right? It's like your turn. So basically this player card is got a game engine built similar to like Pizza Pest. It's a game engine that can just parse through its own memos and get to this current state. Also parse through other people's memos to like show the PvP aspect. So now it's waiting on this, and player two is the one that's up for the move, so he can make a move and vice versa. So that's again, it's kind of like solving PvP for ordinals, basically. Right? We've got leagues, we've got games. You know, you could swap this out for another game. So
play chess. That would be fun.
Ideal, any board game, yeah. Ideally, yeah. Chess game, yeah. All sorts of. You could build an engine really easily with this. I mean, I literally got AI to build this for me in 10 minutes, right? Like, but it's all powered by memos. And I think the beautiful thing again is I can refresh my player card. Actually, let me really make it my player card and call this one Bruffstar. So I'm going to set my board name to Bruffstar. How do I do that? Well, it's a memo. So, like,
perfect.
So if I refresh now the actual live one, it's not this one, sorry. That one is the Bruffstar card. And yeah, I mean, you can imagine this being a real cool tournament, and you could build this up to 9,000 points and then sell it to someone if you wanted to, because it's just an inscription.
It's a collectible.
Yeah, it's a collectible. It's have all this provenance. Imagine, right? Let's play along here, but you do chess, and then you've got all the world famous chess players playing this game online, and then it gets to the end of their career, they potentially die, and then they pass their player card on to their children. That's valuable stuff because it's got played it or she played it, and it's like their history of all the games they played. Boom, you know. Anyway,
the Grandmaster with his 2,000.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
So that's a wild example. And another example is a DAO, right? So I've made here a little bit of a DAO. I've made a kind of a dummy collection here. So I've got this chimp. So here is my chimp. Basically, it's just parent child, nice and clean. One parent, 10 chimps. Metadata, no other pollution here. Then someone can create a DAO inscription here, which is this one, and this has got a DAO, it's got an engine in it that can read the parent. You pass a parent, and it'll pull in the proper children of it, so only children can vote in this DAO. And then as the DAO owner, I can again append a new memo to create a new vote, basically, and then the community can vote. So let's just say I'm viewing this now as chimp number one, and I'm going to vote for this this particular DAO movement here, and again, it's just a memo, right? And then if I look on chain, it reflects on chain as well, obviously, and you see the memos being not for the vote. The memo here is actually for a new proposal. But if I go to my chimp, that will have the memo on it of the actual vote I just did, which is this one. So I voted on this DAO, on this proposal, and I voted for. And again, nobody needs to own this. It's burned. It's one sat. It's clean, and it's basically separated from. I don't really care. I don't really, like. I voted for the DAO. That's cool as a community member, but like I don't want it in my parent-child thing. I don't want to see it here. It's a separate thing, you know. And it's
you don't want to go through your wallet to pass all
Yeah,
these
right.
votes. Yeah.
Exactly. And now you've got this, like, as a community, they can build these cool apps, and your PFP can like interact with this app and without it kind of polluting itself. So again, this Chimp 4, and he's just he doesn't like this, so he's got to vote against it. And again, all this on-chain data can be like represented off-chain, like I'm doing here on the left side as well. So that's pretty cool. And then the last demo simply addresses the again, it's another way of doing the upgradable apps. So again, instead of doing reinscription like most are doing right now, we can, as the owner of the app, somehow do app updates like this. So I can just change this code here to say like amazing color picker, and then I'm going to push this actual JavaScript file as a memo, and then this app here is pulling in that latest JavaScript file, which is cool. Now, you wouldn't want to do it directly on this one, but this is an example of how you can actually pass anything as well. So that's it, dude. We made it through the end. That's the last demo. So
Interactive inscriptions, like just another way of looking at interactive inscription. It's awesome. I think it's a cleaner. That's a cleaner way of looking at putting that information on chain instead of muddying up the parent, like using parent-child to muddy the waters. And I'm not saying that's not been a good option in the past. That's been the only option in the past. But like
right.
when the saying at the ranch is always like know better, do better, and like I like this as an option for sure.
100%.
So
and here's
is there? I was going to say, have you put in a PR for this yet? Have we seen
it's done.
a
It's
PR for
done.
this?
And I'll caveat all of this by saying, hey, I'm not a Rust engineer, right? But I have this idea, and I've used Claude Code to try and help me build this thing, and I've really pushed the limits of it and told it, like, please, review the org code base, make sure you're following best practices, make sure you're following, their code patterns and everything. So, it's I think that this is a great way of just like giving the guys a head start to like have something that's functional. All those demos have been using this code, right? So it's fully tested. I've got the same testing structure as all the other previous features on Ord. I have, respected the tag situation. So I used a tag that I know that's not being used. It's an odd number. I'm using the same testing format as they do. Since this is a lot of similarities to parent-child, a lot of the code is kind of reusing the same style as how parent-child did it, but there's no overlap there at all. So yeah, like I think that I've worked it quite well enough to be already done. But there's always that caveat of like that needs to be checked thoroughly. This is more just like getting the concept out there and getting a head start on the code. But as you can see, I've been through all the demos, like it's working. My local Ord version is like working the way it's meant to work and everything. That's all. And this local version is using the PR code, right? So, and on that, I think it's also maybe a cool way of people, like I've also done another one earlier, right, which is this recursive endpoint. That was again a very easy change to make, and I'm not a Rust engineer, but it's just like, hey, look at the current code base. Here's what I want to do. Kind of like respect the code and make sure you don't change anything else apart from what we need to change, and then you get things like this. So, I'd love to hear from Raf and Casey in terms of like, is this a good approach? Like it gets you there, halfway there, like, and the fact that we're testing it against the local Ord as well kind of probably helps. So,
well,
yeah,
I think you've made it super easy for them to at least go through without having to do all the work to decide if it fits within the structure of ordinals. Yeah, yay or nay.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Like, in that sense, that's really great too, in my mind. But
yeah, and I think it's important to be open about this. I don't want to sit here and claim that I'm some Rust genius. No, I've just got an idea, I want it, and I've been able to demo it. Like, and that's the point.
That's the same thing as the age-old battle on NFTs, which is this AI art or is this hand-drawn art? And like there is a space for AI artists because that's a thing as well, and there's a lot of skill there, but they are proud to say I used AI for this and this is how I push the limits. And this is the same thing. You're like, as long as everybody's open and transparent, which is always the key, transparency is the key, Like my first collection, the one that's referenced as the parent for my sheeple collection, was all done in AI. That was when Midjourney was just becoming a thing, and it was like, okay. And I remember the days of like everyone trying to scramble together to like get a consistency even. And now you can get consistency with 3 lines of prompts and call it a day.
Yeah, absolutely. No, for sure. Yeah, dude. So that's it. That's my spiel. I'd love to get feedback on it. You know, obviously the PR's there if anyone wants to comment on it, and it's an open discussion. It's all down to obviously Raf and Casey vibing with this as well and liking the idea, and obviously ultimately merging it in. I just think it's a kind of important time for us to understand the kind of purity of parent-child, and also respect the fact that people like building cool interactive things on ordinals as well on chain. It's like one of the big differentiators for me being a dev. Like I like to build, you know, all the stuff that we did for Pizza Ninjas. That was just like groundbreaking, cool stuff that you could never do on any other chain. It's a real differentiator for ordinals that you can actually use just pure JavaScript to make on-chain forever cool stuff. And Memos is just like, as you've seen with the tic-tac-toe thing, it's just a really nice separation of concerns where you've got this arbitrary data and you've got the actual experience itself, and it's just a nice way of separating. It's a very odd way of separating it because it's memos are inscriptions, and yeah. So anyway, that's my spiel. So
well, I see like in the wheel turning in my head. There's like, I've got 3 ideas of things that I'd love to see that could come out of it. One being the people that were approaching the Library of Alexandria ideas. I wonder if Memos could solve issues with the data on chain for making books and collections that way. I also, when you said something about it could be a JPEG, a memo could be a JPEG, the first thing that came to my mind was like a picture book, like for your personal collection. If you wanted to have a picture book of your family or something on chain, you could upgrade it with Memos. And like
absolutely.
Yeah, and then of course
something that evolves over time, right? Something that evolves over time. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like games, like the whole idea of games could just be wide open on chain. I think like board games, and community-driven board games and stuff with trackable events like this. I think I would be really excited to see these kind of things online. So awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining me in the journey. I think it would be a bit weird if I kind of done the presentation myself, so it was good to have you here as a wingman helping me along, because I'd have probably just rambled on and not made any sense. And you
don't we all? Yeah, no, I appreciate just like being able to see this at its inception. Like I really appreciate you confiding in me this, and us being able to do it like this in a very intimate setting, almost like side chat like we would do at Ordinals, and see this. And now I'm glad and excited for everybody else to try and get their hands on it and look at it as well. I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody else's thoughts are, for sure.
Same here, man. Definitely. All right, dude. Thanks very much, man. Cheers, everybody, for watching. And
take care, guys.
Let's get this thing merged. You know. So
absolutely.